Good morning. I am AJ Nervous.
And I am Charles Barriga.
And we are going to talk about proving angle pairs. Angle pairs are two angles that satisfy a given condition.
And the angle pair we are going to talk about is a complementary angle. A complementary angle is an angle pair when added is equal to 90.
Our problem. Our given says FBE is a right angle. So this FBE is a right angle. And we have to prove that ABD and DBC are complementary. So ABD and DBC are complementary.
Used for the proof are definition of right angles, definition of vertical angles, vertical angle theorem, definition of congruent angles, transitive property, angle addition postulate, and definition of complementary angles.
First concept we're going to talk about is the definition of a right angle. A right angle is an angle that is equal to 90 degrees.
The next concept we are going to talk about is our vertical angle. Vertical angles is two adjacent angles formed by intersecting lines.
The next concept we're going to talk about is the vertical angle theorem. This theorem states that two vertical angles are congruent.
The next concept we are going to talk about is the definition of congruent angles. This states that two angles are congruent when they have the same measure.
The next concept we are going to talk about is the transitive property. The transitive property states that if A is equal to B and B is equal to C, this means that A is equal to C. The angle addition postulate states that if there is an angle ABC and there is a line in between that angle, and in this case it is right BT,
we add the measure of ABD and DBC is equal to the measure of ABC. Complementary angles. These are angle measures when added is equal to
So
90.
here is our problem. This is our given diagram. Here's our given diagram. And these are the statements given. First statement says FBE is a right angle. So this FBE is a right angle. We have to prove that ABD and DBC are complementary. So we have to prove that ABD and DBC are complementary. So here we go. So we put our given here. FBE is a right angle. So we put the reason there is given. And we can derive two concepts from that. Two statements from that. ABC and FBE are vertical angles because of the concept of definition of vertical angles, and also that the measure FBE equals 90 because of the definition of right angles. From this first statement, we can infer that ABC is congruent to FBE because of the vertical angle theorem. And that is what the vertical angle theorem states. It states that if there are two vertical angles are congruent. And after that, we see that the measure of ABC is equal to the measure of FBE because of the definition of congruent angles. The definition of congruent angles are that if two angles are congruent, they have the same measure. From this, we can get that the measure of ABC is equal to 90. We got that because of this is because of transitive property. Because here it says that the measure of FBE equals 90, and it says here the measure of ABC is equal to measure of FBE. So the transitive property is shown here because if FBE is equal to 90 and FBE equals to ABC, this means that 90 is equal to ABC also. And that is how the transitive property is shown. Our next concept is that measure of ABD plus measure of DBC is equal to the measure of ABC. This is because of the angle addition postulate. The angle addition postulate is that if there is a ray in between, as shown here, in between the angle ABC, the measure of the ABD and DBC is when added is the measure of ABC. So that is the angle addition property. From here, we go to the next concept. It states that measure of ABC and the measure of DBC when added is equal to 90. This is because of the transitive property again. It is because it says here the measure of ABD plus the measure of DBC is equal to the measure of ABC. And it says, and it's stated here that the measure of ABC is equal to 90. So this can be also the measure of ABD and the measure of DBC is equal to 90. And last but not the least, this is our proof. We have to prove this. Angle of ABD and DBC are complementary. This is because of the definition of complementary angles. The definition of the complementary angles are that they are two angles that when added are equal to 90. So here's our whole problem, and this is how you prove it.